There is a specific era that organizes the entire working life of capable people, and it is so deeply held that it does not feel like an era. It feels like maturity. The error is this, that power is a thing one is given by someone authorized to give it, at a moment of their choosing, in recognition of a record one has assembled for their review. Everything follows from that belief. The careful documentation of contributions, the patience, the quiet confidence that the work will be seen, weighed, and eventually rewarded with a larger position. The whole posture is one of submission to a process. Not submission in the sense of weakness, but in the structural sense. The candidate submits materials, and the authority evaluates them. The candidate's job is to be excellent and to wait. The authority's job is to decide. This is the posture of nearly everyone who is still waiting. And the people who are not waiting, the ones who seem to move into authority without the lag, without the petition, without the visible interval of hoping, are not waiting because they have understood something the others have not. They have understood that the decision they are waiting for is not actually a decision. It is a ratification. And ratifications are not won by candidates. They are issued, after the fact, to people who have already made the question moot. Consider what actually happens at the moment a person is elevated. An organization names someone to a role of greater authority. The official story is that a choice was made among candidates, that the institution looked at the field, assessed it, and selected, but examined the moment with any precision, and the official story does not survive. By the time the formal decision is made, the person being named is, in almost every case, already performing the substance of the role. They are already the person others route the relevant problems to. They are already the one whose judgment is treated as load-bearing on the questions that matter. The formal announcement does not transfer authority. It catches the paperwork up to a reality that has been operating unannounced for some time. The people still waiting have inverted the sequence. They believe formalization comes first and operation follows, that you receive the title, and then you begin doing the work of the title. So they wait for the title before they will allow themselves to operate at that level. They keep their judgment sized to their current position, because operating above it without authorization feels presumptuous, feels like a violation of the process they believe in. And in doing so, they make themselves permanently unratifiable. There is nothing to ratify. The institution can only confirm a reality that already exists. A person who refuses to create that reality until they are given permission has handed the institution a candidate with nothing to confirm. This is the silent rule, stated plainly. Authority is occupied before it is granted. The grant is the institution's acknowledgement of an occupation that has already taken place, and the gap between the people who gain power and the people still waiting for it is not a gap of merit, tenure, or even visibility. It is a gap of sequence. One group acts and is then formalized. The other waits to be formalized before it will act. The first group is describing a fact to the institution. The second is making a request. These are not two speeds of the same process. They are two different relationships to power, and only one of them ends in power. The objection arrives immediately, and it is worth taking seriously rather than dismissing, because the people who raise it are not foolish. The objection is, you cannot simply do a job you have not been given. There are boundaries. There is a structure. Acting outside your designated authority is not strategic. It is a way to be seen as overreaching, unstable, a problem. The process exists for a reason. People who ignore it get removed. All of this is true, and it is precisely why the silent rule is silent. It cannot survive being stated as act like you already have the job, because that version of it is genuinely a path to removal. The crude version: assert authority you do not have, make decisions that are not yours to make, announce yourself, triggers exactly the institutional immune response the objection describes. The institution has reliable defenses against the person who grabs. What it has no defense against is something else entirely. The distinction is between claiming authority and exercising judgment. Claiming authority is a public act directed at the institution. It says, "Treat me as though I hold this position." It is a demand, and demands invite the question of whether they will be granted, which means they can be denied. Exercising judgment is not directed at the institution at all. It is directed at the problem. The person exercising judgment is not saying, "Treat me as senior." They are saying nothing. They are simply addressing the problem in front of them at the depth the problem actually requires, which is, almost always, a depth beyond what their formal position strictly calls for. When a problem lands on someone's desk, the conventional response is to handle the portion of it that falls inside their lane and route the rest. The person operating by the silent rule does something different and almost invisible. They address the whole problem, not by seizing control of it, by understanding it completely, by being the one in the room who has actually thought through the parts that are not officially theirs, by arriving at the conversation already holding the shape of the entire situation rather than their assigned fragment of it. They do not announce that they have done this. They simply are, in every relevant conversation, the person whose grasp of the matter exceeds their slot. And the institution registers this, not as overreach. There is nothing to push back against because no claim was made, but as a kind of gravitational fact. The problems start to route toward the person who has demonstrated they can hold the whole of them. This is the entire mechanism, and it is worth being precise about why it is invisible. Overreach is visible, because it has an addressee. It is aimed at someone, asking them to concede something. The exercise of judgment beyond your position has no addressee. There is no one for the institution to defend itself against. The person is not taking anything from anyone. They are simply operating at a level, and the level is observable. An observation is not something the institution can refuse. You can deny a request. You cannot deny a fact you keep encountering. So the people who are still waiting have made a category error about what kind of thing power is. They believe it is a permission, and permissions must be requested. It is closer to a description of where judgment actually concentrates in the system, and descriptions are not requested. They are arrived at by everyone through repeated contact with the same fact. Machiavelli built an entire analysis around the failure mode of the person who waits, and he located it in a place that is uncomfortable to look at directly. He observed that the gravest strategic position is not the position of weakness. A weak actor at least knows the situation must change and is motivated to change it. The gravest position is the position of the actor who declines to commit, who attempts to remain available to all outcomes, to keep every option open, to avoid the exposure that comes with decisive action. This actor believes he is being prudent. He believes that by not committing he is preserving his freedom. Machiavelli's verdict was the opposite. The actor who will not commit is not preserving freedom. He is guaranteeing that the situation will be decided by the actors who do commit, and that he will then have to live inside a reality he had no hand in shaping. Neutrality, in Machiavelli's account, does not keep you safe. It makes you the property of whoever was willing to act. The person waiting to be granted power is this actor exactly. He has told himself that staying inside his designated lane, not overstepping, not presuming, is the cautious move. That he is keeping his record clean and his position secure until the moment of formal elevation arrives. What he is actually doing is declining to commit. He is allowing every consequential question to be shaped by the people willing to operate beyond their authorization, and then arriving afterward to administer the parts of the outcome that fall inside his slot. He experiences this as being a careful professional. The system experiences it as the absence of a person. There is no judgment concentrated there to ratify because the judgment was held back in reserve, waiting for a permission that the system was never going to issue to an empty position. There is a second observation, sharper than the first, that the people still waiting have never had stated to them clearly. Power is not only occupied before it is granted. It is defended before it is granted, and the defense is what proves the occupation is real. Anyone can perform competence in a stable situation. The signal that distinguishes a person who actually holds authority from a person performing the motions of it is what happens under pressure, when a decision they have shaped goes wrong, when a position they took is challenged in front of others, when the cost of having operated beyond their lane comes due. The person who was only performing folds at this moment. They retreat to the safety of their formal position. That was not really my call. I was operating outside my remit. The responsibility sits elsewhere. And in retreating, they confirm what they were the whole time. A candidate, a person whose authority was always provisional, always returnable, never actually occupied. The person who genuinely occupies the position does not retreat because there is nowhere to retreat to. They have already, in their own mind, accepted the position as theirs, which means they have accepted its exposure as theirs. When the decision they shaped is challenged, they defend it, not defensively, not with the anxiety of someone protecting a claim, but with the steadiness of someone describing a situation they own. And the institution watches this. It watches who absorbs the cost of a hard call and who distributes the cost outward. The person who absorbs it has demonstrated something that no record of contributions can demonstrate. That they were not performing the role. They were already inside it, including the part of it that hurts. That demonstration is worth more than years of clean evaluations because it answers the only question the institution actually cares about when it elevates someone. Not, has this person done good work, but will this person hold the position when holding it is expensive? This is why the silent rule cannot be executed as a tactic by someone who has not done the underlying work. The exercise of judgment beyond your position is only safe, only generative rather than fatal, if the judgment is real. A person who operates above their lane without the substance to support it is not occupying authority. They are bluffing, and the pressure moment will expose the bluff with total precision. The instruction is not act senior. It is something more demanding and less comfortable. Become, in actual capability, the person who could hold the larger position, and then operate as that person without waiting for anyone to confirm that you may. The substance is the precondition. The sequence, operate first, be ratified second, is the rule. Neither works without the other. The substance without the sequence is the person still waiting. The sequence without the substance is the person about to be removed. So the reframe is this. The people still waiting believe they are being evaluated, and that the evaluation will end at some point in a verdict. They are organizing their behavior around producing a favorable verdict. But there is no verdict coming, because there is no trial. There is only a long, continuous, unannounced observation of where judgment concentrates and who holds position under cost, and an occasional administrative event in which the institution writes down what it has already observed. The person waiting has been preparing for a moment that does not exist. He has been assembling a case for a jury that was never convened. And the cost of this is not only the years spent waiting. It is that the waiting itself is the disqualifying signal. The institution is not failing to notice its patients. It is noticing it precisely and reading it correctly as the mark of a person who does not yet operate at the level of the position, because a person who operated at that level would not be waiting. They would already be doing the work, absorbing the exposure, holding the whole of the problem, and the formalization would be a foregone conclusion rather than a hope. Power was never going to be handed across the table. The table is where the handover gets recorded. The handover itself happens earlier, somewhere less visible, in the accumulated evidence of a person who decided not to wait for permission to operate as what they already were. The people who gain power and the people still waiting for it are not standing in the same line at different positions. They are not in the same line at all. One group is in a line, the other group stopped standing in lines, and that, not talent, not tenure, not the quality of the case they could have made, is the whole of the difference.